So, good morning to one and all. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Yes, we are here for an investment. I feel honored to welcome the keynote speaker, the participants, and my fellow colleagues for taking a keen part in this expert webinar series. And today's title is Recent Advances in Materials and Technology, a Futuristic Perspective, organized by the Department of Civil Engineering, Rajalakshmi Engineering College, in association with Indian Concrete Institute and Institutions Innovation Council, REC. I am sure that you all will feel enriched with knowledge after completion of this session. I welcome you all once again to this session and hope that you all will have a great time ahead. I invite Mrs. M. Hemavati, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, REC, to give a brief about the keynote speaker.
Good morning to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming Dr. S. Geeta ma'am. Dr. S. Geeta completed her postdoctoral fellowship at IIT Madras, and he had worked in a research project sponsored by the Ministry of Mines for NLC and IITM for a 2.18 crores as a research fellow. And she also obtained her PhD in Building Technology Division from IIT Madras. And she has specialized in sustainable building materials and lightweight concrete. Her PhD work was on a manufacturing of artificial aggregate from a bottom ash for the use in aggregate. And she has a wonderful, fruitful teaching experience of 22 years, and she has published 28 papers in many international conferences in India and 20 papers published in referred journal. And she was awarded a Young Scientist Award by DSTS and Outstanding Researcher Award by BIFRA Foundation. Fruitful teaching experience. And she also patented her work 22 years grinding waste from automobile industry as a potential construction material. And she is also a reviewer in many journals like Advances in Cement Research and Journal of Institution of Engineers and Indian Concrete Journals and the Material Today Proceeding. And there are many still. And it gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you, ma'am. Over to Geeta, ma'am.
Thank you, Hema. Good morning, one and all present here. I would thank the organizers for taking a keen interest in organizing this webinar. Am I audible to all? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are clear, ma'am.
And I could see many students of REC, alumni mainly, who had joined this webinar. I think I would like to again thank the organizers for creating such a platform so that they again come back to us and keen in knowing something new, right? So I would start my presentation and with a thank note for a very brief introduction about me. I would like to now start the presentation without further delay. Is my presentation visible, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Visible.
Okay. So the talk of today is recent advances in materials and technology in civil engineering, a futuristic perspective. So we are not only going to discuss about what is in place today, we are also going to discuss about some innovative material which are in research and which will be taking off in a short while. Some interesting materials, right? So I would like to start with the Winston Churchill's quote, mainly for civil engineering. This is, we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. So generally when a civil engineer looks at a building that he has designed or he has detailed, the proudness in civil engineering is really awful. That experience cannot be experienced in any other form. Even if you get a very big award, seeing a structure that stands, the structure that you design stands, is the biggest happiness a civil engineer will get, right? So with this quote, I would like to start today's session. And the outline of my presentation is a very brief note. So first, I will just talk about concrete, the well-known concrete, as we are all familiar. But I would like to add on some ingredients into concrete, which many of us may not know. I don't claim that may not know. You may know, but at least a delta X knowledge to what you had already known, right? And the second concern of my topic will be way forward. What are the materials that are in research and that will be blooming in the market very soon? And finally, a short comment about some technologies that will be used in future construction practices, as we are now moving forward towards fast track projects, smart constructions, precast buildings, and so, right? So these are the three main aspects of my lecture, and I would like to answer the questions at the end of the lecture, right? So let me start with this, right? So everyone talks about concrete, and I think in this 5 months, we would have attended n number of webinars wherein daily we would hear the term concrete. Many of us would have attended the webinar on it. And we all pretty well know what are the ingredients that are used in making a concrete. Then what is a big deal in making a concrete? Generally, what we know is, we know coarse aggregate, we know fine aggregate, we know any grade of cement, whether it is a local brand or whether it is a branded cement, and lot of water. We don't even measure the water. I think you can see the practice. You can just make a tube inside the mixer machine and then you can make a concrete, right? So this is a concrete that we all know. And to frankly say, even in spite of all these research works that are taking place, this is the type of concrete even now practiced in India, not only in India, in many abroad sites also, right? So what actually results in this? What is actually happening in this? When we are going to make a concrete like that, we are going to get a product like this. Okay, so these are some of the photos from the earthquake affected area of Bhuj. Okay, so you can see the failure of the structure, and you would have even seen many structures even now in the recent rains that fell like a pack of cards, right? So when we are going to make a concrete way, customizing anything without a mixed design, but an engineer's mistake stands like a monument. I think you can see this wonderful mega structure history. Okay, but again, this is in talk only because of the mistake of an engineer. I think you know the story behind this monument, right? Even if not, you have a lot of Google sites wherein you can see the foundation, the geotechnical considerations were not taken into consideration, and you have a lot of story, how they started renovating, how it turned towards the opposite side and all those things. So this stands as a monument for a mistake of a civil engineer even today on earth. Okay, next. What is the advantage of making a good concrete, or what if I don't make a good concrete? Why do I need a good concrete? We have already seen in the first slide, the ingredients are going to be the same: coarse aggregate, fine aggregate, cement, and then water, right? So with the same ingredient, how am I going to make a good concrete, and what is the deal in making a good concrete? Okay, wow. Actually, whatever is used in a bad concrete, the same ingredients are used in good concrete, but with the quality control, right? So, for example, we take large considerations in design, fabrication, handling, finishing, curing, and repairing, but we have very little consideration on the ingredients. So, as I mentioned, though the ingredients are same, the mixed design, the selection of the materials, I should say, generally, nowadays, we don't do the basic material properties to do the mixed design. We simply go by the rule, as when I say M20 concrete, the standard concrete mix will go into place. Seldom a civil engineer takes a mixed design in a laboratory by submitting a sample of the materials to them, asking them to do all the preliminary tests, making them do a mixed design, and then implementing the mixed design in the field. So this is the major thing. Though we have the design, fabrication, handling, and other sorts of mechanisms the same, it is the ingredients that actually differentiate a bad concrete and a good concrete. Why do we need a special concrete? Actually, from a man civilization, starting from being a caveman, he started slowly improving his inhabitants, right? So he started building buildings with using lime mortar, and then slowly with stone masonry, and then slowly by the invent of cement, as Joseph Asphodel, and then slowly it started emerging. And later on, so before going into the special concretes, I would like to emphasize on one simple fact that 95% of the buildings constructed in India are termed as non-engineered structures by the survey that was taken by Indian Concrete Institute recently, which means that 95% of the structures have been built without any consultation by either the civil engineer nor the structural engineer, right? So it only depends upon people who claim to be civil engineers or who claim to have immense practice, saying that they gain knowledge more than civil engineering, who admit they have a lot of experience, but still there is some technology that goes into this material aspect, though they have experiences in designing the building using thumb rule, and they claim that it stands for more than 50 years or 20 years. Still, you need a bit of science and technology that goes into the structure to make your structure stand strong, right? So in this aspect, as we started improving our infrastructure and as we started improving your economic activities, there came into practice a lot of structures, like we started building bridges, we started building tall buildings due to the constraint in the land. Then we started improving the urban habitats and all those things. So what we thought was the ordinary concrete that has been used will not suit all purposes. So it was in this stage that there came special concrete. So special concretes, mainly it can be used when I need an enhanced structural capacity. So when I need to improve the flexural capacity, when I need to improve the compressive strength, when I need to reduce the dead load of the structure. So that is one main thing. When we started going for bridges and tall buildings, the main thing that came into design was our dead load. So only when our dead load are reduced, the foundation can be very efficient, right? So in this case, we need to go for high strength concrete, where lot of special concretes like high strength concrete, high performance concrete, self compacting concrete, reactive powder concrete, all these concretes came into emergencies, and these are still not in research. They have been started to be practiced in site, right? So next thing is ease in constructability. So generally, previously, as I told you, more water is required to make your workability. I think we know what is workability, the ease with which we can handle the concrete. So later on, the invent of superplasticizers, and not only superplasticizers, admixtures play a major role in creating these special concretes. You have n number of admixtures, starting from superplasticizers to set controllers, retarders, accelerators, corrosion inhibitors, and whatnot, right? So these admixtures actually help a material specialist in making a tailor-made concrete to customize the property of the concrete for any application for the intended use, right? So when I say special concrete, the major role goes to the chemical admixtures and the mineral admixtures. So people started invading into lot of mineral admixtures. Of course, we know many waste materials have been incorporated as mineral admixtures, like fly ash, both class C and class F, silica fume, slag, metacoilin, and whatnot. And again, I should admit a statement here. When all these trends came into practice, even people started using whatever waste material that was available. They started making it using concrete because, as we know, after water, the maximum material that is consumed by man is concrete. So they thought that whatever waste is available in earth, just dump it into the concrete. But that is not a scenario that should be taken forward. We are supposed to actually characterize the material before being added into concrete. What is the interface between this material and the concrete? What are the reactions that are possibly going to take place? So these are some of the research aspects that are needed before any material is to be included in concrete. So this was the research that was taking place decades ago, wherein they found lot of suitable materials like what I had listed now, mineral admixtures, that was used in concrete, and which has given us fruitful results, claiming that these materials are very advantage of being used in concrete, that too in the making of special concrete. And next thing, water cement ratio is the main aspect in making a special concrete. The main criteria is I need a low water cement ratio. So how do I compromise my workability in this? Yes, I need a good workability also here. So superplasticizers up to third generation are now in in field now. So these are the way forward thinking in which the special concretes came into existence. So these are the reasons why we have started using special concretes. What are special concretes? I've discussed something when we were discussing in the previous slide. We are going to use the same basic ingredients, but not as it is. We are just going to have a concept called as particle packing. So I would rather use a word as tailor-made concrete here. I've made it the first phrase of it. Though we are going to use the same ingredients, as I have told you from the beginning, mixture proportions matter a lot here. Next thing is mixing techniques. Even now, many of us do not know the concept of loading a mixture machine. Whatever is placed near the machine, we start loading it. There is a criteria in loading the mixture machine, and there is a criteria in mixing also. Your dry mix should be homogenized in a proper fashion. Only then your mixing water should come into place. And there is a time and there is a proper way in which the mixing practices has to be carried out. And there is a time when the super plasticizers has to be added to the concrete and all those things. And next thing is handling methods. So generally these handling methods come into practice when we have pumping facilities there. So when we have pumped concrete from RMC plants, from ready mix concrete plants, then we look into these handling methods. And otherwise, if not, we usually have a human ladder in making these concrete to the respective place, which is again a main factor to be considered in transferring the concrete. Next thing will be, after all these tailor-made concepts, after making a proper mix design, after making a suitable ingredients selection, after having a proper mixing techniques, and after making, adopting a proper handling the concrete, that structure and the type of structures the architects started designing. I think we should thank the architects for giving a big challenge to the civil engineers, because only their design has created we should be able to convince them, saying that our concrete also behaves equally or even sometimes superiorly than the conventional concrete that are used in practice. Even then, there are a lot of hesitation in taking this product to a commercial market. And here I have just tabulated the properties of lightweight concrete and the normal density concrete. Many of this which I had told you. So generally we say the compressive strength, maybe I do agree that we cannot go beyond 50 MPa. That is the maximum limitation. With lot of effort we can go only up to 50, but whereas in normal density concrete we can go up to 80. But tensile strength doesn't make a large variation, which can be compensated by using fibers in concrete, or which can be used taken care by the tensile reinforcement in concrete. And modulus of elasticity, there is not much difference here. Poisson's ratio is the same. You can see the major important aspect is the thermal conductivity, which I showed you. So which I've been talking to you in the previous case. So the isolated air void actually has a good thermal conductivity. Here we can actually see the thermal conductivity value of a lightweight concrete and the normal concrete. And finally, the thermal expansion values. So these are some of the comparison of the properties with respect to normal density concrete. And some common applications. So in marine structures, we have gone for those infill blocks only. So many, I would say most bridge decks in foreign countries where there are ice deposits or snow deposits, they prefer to use lightweight concrete there. And main thing is generally floor slabs are also used in I'm not talking about the common practice in India. In India, still lightweight concrete is only restricted to building blocks that we see as Yarragon blocks. And we have not, the technique has not been well versed, or it has not been established for us to carry out in practice. I would not say it is still in research. I would say that there is some reluctance in taking it to the market, this lightweight concrete applications. But these are some of the applications that have been used in abroad. Right. Next thing, self-compacting concrete, which is a very fascinating type of concrete, where we had proven that water can run like water. I mean, concrete can run like water. So mainly this, and whenever there is a problem and when there is a solution, we invent a new material. So that is a very clear thing. So the same way the self-compacting concrete was invented only because there was a problem encountered in Japan. So in Japan, when there was a big industrial level revolution, when they started constructing large constructions, the detailing showed very congested reinforcement prevailing there. So they found it very difficult to use an ordinary concrete where they required a lot of energy in vibrating the concrete in making it honeycombed free structure. So it was there where a person, a material scientist, Okamura, invented the self-compacting concrete. He's actually called father of self-compacting. Even now, the mixed design that is followed in self-compacting concrete is from the paper that he had actually published. So he has given a very detailed description about this self-compacting concrete. And generally it is used, the main application, I would put it in this way, whenever we are having a very congested reinforcement, we could go for self-compacting concrete, and that is the only solution for us to prevent the vibration in making the concrete to fill the entire space. So this is a customized concrete for congested reinforcements. The strength, you would be able to achieve a strength greater than 50 MPa, and you can even go up to 80 MPa. So it comes under the category of high strength and high performance concrete only. And as I told you, the advantages, the density and all those things are same. And here you should make a note that the coarse aggregate has to be, the size of the coarse aggregate has to be limited, because as I told you, it is mainly used in situations where you have a congested reinforcement. So generally we prefer to use 12 mm down aggregates. 12 mm and aggregate size, down size of 12 mm is preferably used in self-compacting concrete. And here I would appreciate the use of chemical admixtures, which plays a major role. So in terms of VMA, viscosity modifying agents, and in terms of superplasticizer, in terms of also mineral admixtures like silica fume, fly ash. So we call something as paste volume here generally. So paste volume and aggregate volume. So these are the two aspects which should be considered while designing these self-compacting concrete. And one more thing that is actually required is we need a very technical expert member in order to place this, because not all can handle the self-compacting concrete. You should be able to control the speed. At one particular point, you cannot accumulate the entire concrete because it will be flowing, gushing out like a water. So you need to have a skilled workmanship in order to place this self-compacting concrete, right? So these are some of the concepts, or these are some of the takeaways which are to be considered when a self-compacting concrete is actually in practice. So what are the features with respect to self-compacting concrete? Mainly when we do this in a laboratory, we have lot of tests in order to only check the flow ability, passing ability, filling ability. So we don't constrain the word as workability alone. So we have many types of tests like L-box test, we have a V-funnel test, we have a J-ring test, and lot of tests are used mainly for workability. So SCC, strength properties of SCC is very similar. You only need to cast a cube, a cylinder, and a prism in order to test the compressive, flexural, and split tensile strength of concrete. But in terms of workability, we have lot of tests as per the Euro standards in order to ascertain whether it is able to pass through the reinforcement without any delay. We actually take the time that is traveled by the self-compacting concrete in passing through all these molds. And next one main thing in terms of self-compacting concrete that we had come across in practice is segregation. So when we are not able to get a good blend of self-compacting concrete, there is a major problem termed as segregation, where the aggregate separate from the mortar, and that is a big problem. And then actually the sole purpose of using a self-compacting concrete, as I told, I don't need a vibrator. But when segregation occurs, it is a very tedious job in order to make it in practice. We need to do something in order to mainly this I'm talking about when we have come across after placing the concrete in the site. So a thorough mixed design of the self-compacting concrete in order to prevent this segregation is a major role in doing the self-compacting concrete, right? So we'll see some of the quick tips in order to make a very compromising self-compacting concrete here. So use of superplasticizers, and I was talking about something called as paste volume. So this paste volume should be greater than 35%. I'm talking about the entire matrix. The entire volume of the concrete has to be considered. It is differentiated into a paste volume and aggregate volume. So this paste volume, generally we do all these marble. We have a lot of tests for paste. We have something called as marsh cone test, mini slump test. All these things are done in order to first tailor make the paste combination. So these are all very miniature equipments that are in the lab in order to customize your paste volume. So that is a major role in the paste volume plays a major role in self-compacting concrete. So we need a high paste volume. So this can be achieved by using mineral admixtures like silica, fume, and fly ash. So if you see the customization mix proportion of self-compacting concrete, it is actually very different. So the paste volume is a very major factor here, and we have a very low aggregate volume here, only to 0.3 to 0.35%. And next one, as I told you, we need a viscosity modifying agent, VMA, in order to look after the flowability of the concrete. And main thing is, though we use a lot of fines, we should be able to enable the flowability of the concrete so that there is no blockage whenever we are doing those tests like passability test or fillability test or whatsoever it may be. So, and again, here again, I would like to say the water cement ratio. I think here we have given low water. So here we don't say it as cement alone, because cement is not the only binding material that are used. I told you the paste volume consists of lot of mineral admixtures that goes into the concrete. So here generally we say it is water fines ratio rather than water cement ratio. So 0.3 to 0.3 is nominal, but 0.4 is a little bit high. But when in terms of more filler effects, then we go for, because when more fines are added into concrete, it makes the concrete very sticky. So in that case, we are supposed to go with a higher water cement ratio in that case, right? So as I told you, the coarse aggregate, it should be less than 20 mm preferably. But nowadays I could see many papers with self-compacting concrete where they are using the same gradation, but they just make a proportioning. They say 60% of aggregates down 12 mm size and then 40% of 20 mm aggregate size. But generally, it is always advisable to use a lower fraction of aggregate in order to get a good flowable concrete in terms of self-compacting concrete. So what are the applications? We have a lot of applications. Actually, now I could say self-compacting concrete has emerged out as a normal concrete, and in many places I could see mainly people who are demanding RMC concrete. They are asking them to bring self-compact. I had seen a lot of self-compacting concrete in our metro rail projects also, where they had concreted using the self-compacting concrete, and also some high-rise buildings also use the self-compacting concrete. So these are some of the applications of SCC, bridges, tunnel linings, you can see columns of high-rise buildings, many sandwich structures, composite structures. Self-compacting concrete is the best concrete that can be used. And nowadays for repair and rehabilitation, instead of this uniting and shotcreting, they prefer to have a self-compacting concrete with a chicken mesh, I should say. And when we are going for the diaphragm walls, or when we are going for a mat foundation, when we are going to construct a two-story basement down the ground level, then self-compacting concrete is generally preferred. And for girders and culverts also, self-compact. So it has become a common concrete. And this concrete, in a very short time, it has found applications as a normal concrete in many of the buildings in India and abroad. In abroad, totally normal concrete has been replaced by self-compacting concrete, I would say. Generally in Japan, I should say, normal concrete is very rare for you to see. Now they have totally, self-compacting concrete has totally taken over the concrete industry in many of the foreign countries abroad. So I have a video here. I don't know if you would be able to view it. You would have seen the self-compacting concrete, just a pouring of the self-compacting concrete. See if you're able to view it in the screen. Are you able to see it?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I think I'll show it at the... at the end of the session when okay, I'll show it at the end of the session. Maybe I should share it separately, I think, right? So next thing will be fiber reinforced concrete. So fiber reinforced concrete, the major advantage is it actually bridges the crack. So you could see the images. The first image gives the type of various fibers that are used here. And this is actually the fiber that is incorporated. This is actually a fresh concrete state where you can see the distribution of the fibers across. And this is a hardened concrete after the strength test that has been performed, where you can see the fibers bridging the gaps of the concrete. I've given some of the properties of fiber reinforced concrete here. So mainly nowadays pavement slabs have been constructed using this fiber reinforced concrete in many places. There are a lot of fibers, I would say, starting from steel fibers itself. You have a lot of fibers. You have a hooked fiber, you have a straight fiber, you have chopped fibers, you have carbon fibers, Kevlar fibers, glass fibers, polypropylene fibers, polyethylene fibers, and whatnot. Many fibers are now used in practice. Generally, we also have a mix of fibers. We call it as a hybrid fiber reinforced composite, wherein we have a combination of steel fiber and also polypropylene or polyethylene fibers. And main thing to see in fiber concrete is it actually improves the flexural resistance of concrete. So what happens is the high strength concrete, when you want to increase the ductility of the high strength concrete, fiber should be incorporated in order to overcome that disadvantage. So I didn't want to reveal that in that particular point. So as I told you, after diagnosing the advantages and disadvantages, the material scientist should be able to appropriately rectify the disadvantage by using the correct material into it. So when I'm going to go for high strength concrete, when ductility is a major problem there, high strength concrete can be converted into a fiber reinforced high strength concrete, where steel fibers can be added in the matrix and the ductility of the structure can be improved. Actually, it acts like a rubber band. These steel fibers in the matrix acts like a rubber band, which actually prevents the widening of the cracks in concrete. And one more thing I would like to emphasize here is the major problem we come across in steel fiber is the quantity of fibers that get into the matrix. So we usually call it in terms of volume. Generally, we use 2% by volume and up to a maximum of 10%. The major drawback in making a fiber reinforced concrete is you have something called as balling effect. So when you're not customizing or when you're not making a proper mix design, is during the mixing itself, all your fibers will start accumulating at a point, making a ball-like structure, right? So that is one of the major disadvantage which could be overcome only by proper mix design. So these are some of the properties with respect to fiber reinforced concrete. I've just given you the test results and the tomography image analysis that can be used in order to find out the dispersion of the fibers in the hardened concrete. Maybe in a fresh concrete state, we will be able to see where the fibers are actually dispersed. But after mixing, after placing the concrete or after vibrating it, we will not get an idea of how the fibers are dispersed actually. So this is one of the non-destructive testing. We generally use X-ray tomography in order to get an image analysis where we will be able to locate the fiber dispersion in the matrix. So these are some of the images that I would just give to enhance the properties of fiber reinforced concrete. And as I told you, these are some of the some of the fibers that I had listed out. One thing to get added here is nowadays we have started even using these organic fibers from plant fibers also. Many fibers like hemp concrete, making we say that we are going to make a sustainable concrete and all those things. Why do we need to go for a steel fiber? Why do we need to put polyethylene fibers into concrete? So these fibers perform equally good like steel fibers or polyethylene fibers and whatnot, right? So apart from these type of fibers, we also have, I've given you at the end, naturally occurring fibers like cellulose, coconut fibers, jute fibers, hemp fibers are also some of the fibers that are used in concrete nowadays. I don't know whether they have been used in practice. Generally, I think they are still in research stage only. But steel fiber reinforced concrete with steel fibers and polyethylene fiber. Mainly polyethylene fibers are used in slabs, bridge deck slabs, in order to prevent the shrinkage cracks actually. So that is one major important aspect where shrinkage cracks are prevalent in slabs. So these polyethylene fibers can prevent the shrinkage cracks to a large extent. So each fiber has its own unique properties which can be used appropriately whenever and wherever required. So characteristics of fiber reinforced concrete: generally it improves the flexural toughness of the material, and it can be very successful. It has been very successfully used in bridges, and nowadays, as I told you, pavement, I think many road pavements, concrete road pavements, they have started using this fiber reinforced concrete. With basalt fibers, they have started using these basalt fibers, because when we are using steel fibers, as the concrete erodes, your steel fibers will be popping out, damaging the tires. So they have started using basalt fibers. And one more thing is, one major advantage of these fiber reinforced concrete is it takes up impact load to a large extent, and the fatigue performance is also good here. So fatigue is repeated loading. So when you keep on repeating the load action, it's not like cyclic loading, adding and removing, but when you are continuously loaded, when your cyclic loading is, you will be having it in a proper interval. Okay, so you load it, unload it, you load it and unload it. But fatigue is, you'll continuously load the member. In that case, this fiber reinforced concrete performs well in all cases. So these are some of the common applications of fiber reinforced concrete. So slabs on grade. Slabs on grade is generally what we call it in flooring, pavements. And precast panels, many of the precast industries have now switched on to fiber reinforced concrete, and also sandwich panels have a larger applications in fiber reinforced concrete, right? So the next type of special concrete, I think we have now known this concrete a lot more. Everywhere you go for a student project, there will be, out of 10 projects, 5 projects will be on geopolymer concrete, right? So this is a zero cement concrete, but the sad thing is still we have not put it into practice, because again we claim that it is costly. The alkaline activators, that is the sodium hydroxide and the sodium silicate, not only that, now many activators have come into practice, but we claim that this is a sustainable construction material where it has no carbon dioxide release into the atmosphere. It makes a green environment and all those things, right? So I would like to just give a briefing about this geopolymer concrete. As we know, it is a zero cement concrete. We require a silica rich base. I will not say only fly ash is used. We also use metacoilin. We also use kaolinite, slag, and all these things have been proven to be very efficient raw materials in making a geopolymer concrete, not only fly ash. So I can no longer call it as a fly ash geopolymer concrete. So there are a lot of silicate rich materials that can be used as a raw material in making this geopolymer concrete, and you can achieve enormous strength in geopolymer concrete. The major factor that is governing the strength is the molarity of sodium hydroxide and the sodium silicate by sodium hydroxide ratio, right? So this is one of the things, I should say, still it is in research with a lot of durability practice and all those things, but there are a lot of countries which have adopted, mainly in Australia. Nowadays, many bridge tunnelings, bridge structures have been constructed using this geopolymer concrete. They have actually perfected the activator solution there. So here you can simply order a bag of material which contains all these binding material along with a combination of fine aggregate and coarse aggregate and the alkaline activator, which is supplied in cans or barrels. Take to the site, mix it, and because now they have come across, you don't need a temperature for a temperature curing for making a geopolymer concrete. You can even make it in a normal ambient curing temperature. I would like to highlight the major advantage in geopolymer concrete. We had a high temperature test performed for this geopolymer concrete, and we found that in a normal concrete, when the temperature exceeded 250 degrees centigrade, it started spalling. the concrete lost its binding capacity and it started falling into pieces. But on the other hand, geopolymer concrete enhanced its strength. There was increase in strength of geopolymer concrete. There was some reaction that was taking place wherein this high temperature actually facilitated the improvement in strength. So this was actually discovered by a fire accident that took place in I think in a bridge tunnel in Australia, and later on all the bridge tunnel linings and the bridges in Australia are constructed using this geopolymer concrete. And I think in India we have to go a long way in order to implement this in practice, right? So this is a brief introduction about the geopolymer concrete. And next thing, one of the fascinating subject we see is the 3D printing. Also, this is one of the wall that was printed in IIT, a compound, a miniature of the wall. You can see a structure also there, which has been printed in 3D printing. I think a lot of media has also covered this 3D printing concept. So here, the major thing that has to be taken, I think you can see the image here. It is actually deposited in layers. You have a pen-like structure, and I think the pump is away from it. It is actually deposited in layers, and we deposit at least 10 to 15 layers in a day. So the main thing is you need to customize a mortar go settlement. Okay, so in order to prevent that, as I keep laying the concrete, it should be completely set before I lay the next layer on top of it. So this is one major aspect that has to be considered in terms of a 3D printing concrete. So main thing is mortar. So here totally coarse aggregate is eliminated here, and fine aggregate, very fine powder has to be used. And one thing I missed out in this lightweight aggregate concrete, was we were talking about aerated. I think foam concrete. When I said I told you fly ash can be used or fine sand can be used. The same thing applies with the aerated concrete also. You cannot use fine aggregate greater than 300 microns in aerated concrete. Either you need to pulverize the sand or you need to go for a very fine particle size distribution of fine sand that has to be used in aerated concrete. So that is one important aspect. The same way, this is actually, I cannot call it as 3D concrete printing. Rather, I should say it as 3D mortar printing, because again, I don't have a coarse aggregate here, but I have lot of chemical admixtures going into it in order to make it a quick setting mortar. So 3D concrete printing, which is now taking a lot of effort, and I think the next project here will be in laying all the road medians using a 3D concrete printing machine. So that is another project that is yet to come soon in India, right? So you can only make constant pattern of this 3D printing. So you need to customize the mold when you need to go for this 3D. That is one major disadvantage. But I think now you can see, browse in a YouTube, lot of buildings have been 3D printed. So now they are customizing it slowly, and we'll be able to even make a building soon with respect to using a 3D printed concrete technique. So the next thing, so these are some of the fantasies, just to have an ice break in between these lectures. So lunar concrete, we have seen lot of news wherein they have mimicked lunar concrete. People have brought some samples from the moon, and now I think they have given notices that soon we will be making shuttling spaceship where you can just go like a tourist spot to moon and to Mars. People can just go there, stay there and come back. So in that case, they need to build some habitats there. So they just brought some material from there, and it was actually a calcium rich material. So they had mimicked the material and they had termed it as a lunar concrete. So this is just a note on what is happening in the material aspect, but not into the specific material combinations that goes into a lunar concrete. The next thing is also a very interesting concrete, which is a reactive powder concrete. So reactive powder concrete, again, it has been used in cooling towers and in high-rise buildings. And this is a notable concrete where, again, total coarse aggregate is eliminated. But the strength that can be achieved is from 200 to 800 MPa. 800 and 600 MPa concretes are already in practice in abroad. So mainly this reactive powder concrete has a lot of customization to go here. So I'll give you some tips in order to make a reactive powder concrete. So one thing is the low water cement ratio, and a different type of Portland cement has to be used. We would like to go for a very fine kind of Portland cement. We need the fineness to be very less here. And the silica fume, large quantity of silica fume will be used here. And main thing is ordinary sand cannot be used here. I think you can see fine quartz sand, or in certain case steel powder is being used as a fine aggregate in reactive powder concrete. And generally reactive powder concrete cannot be made as a normal cured concrete. You need a temperature curing in order to achieve this strength. Not only steam curing, sometimes we also require a pressure. So generally we go for an autoclave process wherein temperature and pressure enable the hydration hydration reactions to take place faster. Right. So these are some of the major points that has to be noted in the manufacturing of reactive powder concrete. I'll just show you some other results with respect to this. So properties. We have achieved, as I told you, 200 to 800, and in India we have achieved around 100 MPa of this reactive powder concrete. Tensile strength is actually enormous, 20 to 50 MPa. And generally, wherever we are going to use this reactive powder concrete, we don't go for steel reinforcement. Rather, we embed fibers inside the matrix of the reactive powder concrete, and the thickness of this of the sections that we are building using the reactive powder concrete is very thin. I would give you an example. A bridge girder was designed with an M60 concrete, which resulted in 1.5 meter depth of the girder. So when it was replaced to reactive powder concrete, it was only 30 centimeter. So just imagine what is the reduction in size of the sectional member when reactive powder concrete comes into place. And next is flexural strength. Flexural strength is also enormous. Young's modulus is great, 50 to 75 MPa. And fracture energies. Generally, it requires a lot of energy in order to fracture the reactive powder concrete. You need very high capacity testing machines to test this reactive powder. Your ordinary compression testing machine will not create a failure for this reactive powder concrete specimens. You need to go for very high-end testing machines in order to customize the strength and in order to finalize the mixed design of this reactive powder concrete. And here again, you will be seeing the tests that are to be conducted, or again marsh cone and mini slump, in order to bring out this reactive powder concrete here. And the continuation of this reactive powder concrete, it is phenomenally great in durability, and it has no shrinkage or creep because coarse aggregates are not incorporated inside this concrete. So there is no shrinkage or creep. And since coarse aggregates are totally eliminated, the density of the concrete is also less when compared to the conventional concrete. So it will be around 1900 maximum. And I can term it as lightweight. Why? Because it comes under the slab of 1900 as per ASTM. So I can claim this as a lightweight concrete also. And one more thing, I don't have a problem with the segregation and all those aspects because my coarse aggregate has been totally eliminated from this type of concrete. And what are the applications? I've just given a very interesting structures that have been built using this reactive powder concrete applications. Mainly, as I would say, again, structures abroad have been built with respect to reactive powder concrete, and it has been found to be very advantageous in building large span bridge structures, long span bridge structures, I should say, and stadiums also. These reactive powder concretes can be used on a major role when reduction in sectional properties are to be a concern factor here. Right. So the next thing is nano concrete. Again, nano concrete has become a very common way of treating. It has still not come into practice. Nano concrete has been tried in shielding of radiations of some industries or so. We have single-walled nanotubes and multi-walled nanotubes, and apart from this, we also claim that when nano materials are used into concrete, we call it as a nano concrete. Maybe it could be when we are pulverizing these mineral admixtures to nano size materials, we even term those as nano concrete. So generally, nano concrete was initially termed when nanotubes were incorporated in nanocarbon tubes were incorporated into concrete. The only major disadvantages in nanocarbonate is dispersion of these nanotubes, and now I think this can be overcome using a sonicator. So when you can disperse the nanotubes effectively using a sonicator measures, and the strength of the nano concrete is again enormous. You can use it when you require a high strength concrete with the lower cross sectional dimensions. This type of nano concrete can be used. Next is again a fantastic concrete called a self-healing concrete, which is again in a research. So actually they say self-healing concrete is a bacterial concrete. Not always. And obviously, not only bacteria plays a major role in self-healing. When it can be made into two types. So self-healing can be done by bacteria, and also you have some epoxies. I could also reveal the name. It is sodium silicate. Sodium silicate, otherwise called as water glass, which are actually put it in capsules. So these capsules are actually tailor-made. And these sodium silicate are filled inside the capsules and dispersed across the entire matrix. So what happens is when a crack propagates, the stress is implied on the capsule breaks, releasing the sodium silicate outside, which bridges the crack. So this is a very simple basic phenomenon in self-healing concrete. The major disadvantage is your capsule should be designed in such a way that it breaks correctly when the intended stress is applied. Otherwise, there is no point in making a capsule and incorporating in the mortar, right? So that is a major point to be noted here. And next thing, as we know, bacteria. Bacillus is the strain here, and it is a very easily available bacteria, which you can see in the mud. Sand strains have this Bacillus strain. You can just extract the bacteria. You can use an agar-agar solution. You can cultivate the bacteria, increase its number, and then incorporate in the concrete. It becomes dormant. And when you use it in, actually this bacteria, this type of concrete was again discovered accidentally. And it was, interestingly, it was discovered by an Indian scientist who lives abroad, I think in UK. When he was doing a repair and rehabilitation in some temple structures, he found some white calcite deposits on many of the structures. Many had cracks. He was there in order to rehabilitate the structure, but later on he found many of the cracks were sealed automatically with the white cementing structures. Then he asked the authorities, have you done all the repair works? Initially they said no. Then later on he took it and he brought it. Then he found that it was secretion from a bacteria. So many discoveries happened by accident. And so this type of bacteria has also happened. So now we do it, we extract the bacteria, we increase its number, we incorporate it into the mortar, and when there is a crack, the conducive environment for the bacteria actually occurs. It gets water, it gets sunlight, it gets oxygen and all those things. And finally, it secretes calcite, which actually bridges the crack. So this is actually called as self-healing concrete. So not only bacteria, epoxies like epoxies and sodium silicates can also be used in this self-healing concrete techniques. So next one is an interesting concrete, translucent concrete. So even before its research, it has been incorporated in commercial things. So we have optical fibers incorporated in concrete. So 95% will be the concrete matrix. Coarse aggregate will not be here, only mortar will be here. So we have 5% of optical fibers. Optical fibers generally, it transmits light. Translucent concrete panels have been predominantly used in the walkways of many high-rise apartments in OMR. So generally, initially we thought it was sensors, but actually these translucent concretes have been, I'll show you certain images wherein it has been used. So even in nighttime, you can see some lights actually glowing. Not only for pavement, it has been also used as side walls in many of the thing. I think one stadium has been built using this translucent concrete. So it's not a big deal. Only thing is you need to find the appropriate optical strands, glass fiber optical strands, which will conduct the light. So it is commercially available. So as I told you, even before research proved it, there are many components that are commercially accepted and have been started using. So now I'll be giving you a list of those such components. So rather than being you wouldn't have even studied some research papers based on these materials I'm showing now, some 5 to 6 materials. You have seldom 1 or 2 papers. Soon after that, it has been transferred commercially, right? So one such material starts here. It is translucent concrete. So here you can see some examples. You have the glass panels, you have some wall panels, and in many of the things, even your ventilators are made using this translucent concrete. Mainly daylight. You can make your building, your house very bright when you're using this translucent concrete. So this is one of the major hike in all our special concretes. Next thing is something called a Sensitile. And as I told you, this is the same concept of translucent concrete, which has been used in floorings, generally in many apartments, which will again improve the lighting effect in your house. I would like to show you the images here. So these are some of the walkways that are used in apartments. So initially you will think that it is sensors, but it is not. You can see the dispersed light in all the image. You cannot have sensors so closely spaced like this. So these are actually, it's commercially available. It is termed as Sensitile. And these are actually our concrete mortar where these optical fibers have been incorporated here in order to make it attractive like this, right? So the next thing is electrified wood. So here we need to connect it to a very minimum light. So you can use it as a table, or you can use it as a shelf, as a wardrobe or something like that. So here we have a wood and a metal piece embedded inside the wood. We actually make it by a press technique here. I think you can see the details here, but you need an electrical socket to connect. Obviously, it doesn't have any light emitting diodes or anything like this. You need a minimum power supply where some light panels will be actually embedded here. And mainly you can use it in your study room, or it can be used in a shelf or in any particular applications. It is called as electrified wood. Actually, it is incorporated wood. So far we had seen in concrete. The light emitting capacity in concrete. So this is one thing where concrete is not involved, wherein we have metal strips and wood, which can be used in mainly in some applications like study table, as I told you, and some furnitures which can be used in our house. And the next important, interesting thing is this Richlite. You cannot. There were only 1 or 2 papers on this Richlite. It was not termed as Richlite. This is a commercial name, and it is actually a zinc top. Imagine it is just paper. This top is a paper. Actually, you can see the composition. 70% of this material is recycled paper, and you have lot of resins that goes into this. It looks similar to your granite top, more stronger than that. Very light in weight. Very light in weight, and this is one of the products that has been in market soon. And you can see the combinations here. I've given here some of the only the tabletop. I'm not talking about the wood that is in the bottom. This tabletop. So this is actually this Richlite material that is actually used with respect to this recycled paper and the resins here. Next one is liquefied granite. So liquefied granite is like a paint actually. You can make it on a floor. When I need a 150 centimeter thick concrete in an industrial flooring, and that too gets damaged when I drop down a hammer or something like that, this material was actually found out, liquefied granite. I'll just show you the image at the next slide. We'll just look into quickly what are the advantage of using this liquid granite that is actually made like a paint. That's it. We know granite. Granite is a form of carbon material which is very strong, and mainly it is made right. So this liquid granite, which can be just applied as a thin coat, will serve the entire intended purpose. Here you can see. So it is the commercial name is also given here, and this is a granite, liquid granite flooring that has been done in a car showroom, a garage and a car showroom. So these are some of the advantages of using a liquid granite, wherein I can avoid a very hardcore concreting in a ground for a flooring, I should say. Next one, bendable concrete. Again, this is still in research in India, but later it has been used in many buildings there. It comes as a thin section. So the main secret behind this bendable concrete is something called as PVA, polyvinyl alcohol fibers, PVA, which makes the concrete bendable. So you can bend it like a cardboard or something, not by using your hand. You need to have some mechanism, just like a compression testing machine or some your flexure testing machine. It's not so flexible that you can bend it using your normal applied load using your hands or something like that. I'll show you. So here the main thing in this bendable concrete, it is very flexible, ductile, and it can be used in earthquake resistant structures. I think now a company is coming up with a precast bendable concrete which could be used in zone 5 earthquake zones, mainly in Delhi, in Gujarat, and parts of Himalayas and Jammu Kashmir. So there is a precast concrete construction company which is pioneering this bendable concrete, which can be used as a slab, and I think beams. They're going for beam and slab, and wall panels also using this bendable concrete. And the secret ingredient, as I told you, is polyvinyl alcohol, and the dosage of fibers has to be customized depending upon the flexural resistance we actually need. So here you can see a bendable. I said you cannot bend it by hand, obviously. So you need a loading setup like this in order to make it bendable. So you can see the curvature of the bending in this particular type of concrete. So the next thing is concrete canvas. So here we have a very flexible material here. You can see here this concrete canvas. It is actually a very light material. You have a fabric, cloth fabric or something like that, where concrete will be incorporated into this. Main thing is it sets very fast. So you need to place it very soon. And one more thing, the strength gaining is also more. You can load the structure in 20%. Mainly it has been used for people making temporary accommodations, just like tents where you have some temporary arrangements. You stay there for a short time and then you just leave it. Some barren hill stations or something like that. So this concrete canvas will soon replace all our shamiana materials, maybe down the line. So this is one of the material, and it has been approved by many agencies to be used. For example, when we have a larger time duration of something happening, maybe a stall or a exhibition or something like that, which is happening for a month or a week's time, then this type of material is recommended for us to make the particular structure in order to place whatever things we need in that. So next one is e-glass. I think we know this e-glass mainly. It's not like our ordinary glass that we use in car windows. So this e-glass actually traps the light when it is in winter season. It actually makes the room feel a little warmer, and in summer season it actually prevents the sun's rays from getting in. So it prevents making it more hotter like that. So it has a different technique. This e-glass can be actually made on all our outer wall glazes in order to make it environmental friendly. I should say comfort. It is rather used in comfort. So Saint-Gobain has played a major role, and you may ask what is the role of a civil engineer in doing this. For your information, Saint-Gobain now hires civil engineers for their glass facades. So you also need to know, I think many universities have incorporated design of glass structures in their curriculum, which is now fastly. All your IT corridors, everything now will soon be replaced by these alum boards, will be replaced by these glass panels. So this is one thing which is an emerging technology using e-glass. So this is the principle behind how a e-glass actually behaves. So the next one is transparent. This is a very interesting material. We have seen actually the golden color boards and the silver color boards that you see you see in your IT parks or in your L&T buildings are actually not glass. They are alum boards. It is an alum board actually. Load coming here, and also you have the same live load and dead load as it happens in a structure, right? So this is one of the example of the structure that has been built using a transparent aluminium, right? So paper insulation. So when we need to make a house very comfort and we need to make it sustainable, we are using some waste paper here. So again, it is a type of foam concrete wherein you can make the wall insulated. Due to this insulation, I'll also show you the layers, how they are doing it. Very cheap material, and it can be used with waste cardboards and paper, just grinding it into a paste and having a very low foaming agent in order to bond it. I'll just show you the cross section of how this is done. Actually, the homes built of this particular paper insulation seems to be very cool. You don't even need an AC when you're having walls made of this particular material, right? So this is the cross section where you have used a paper insulation. It looks to be very cool, and the top you can see you have a rafter ceiling with tiles here, with the brick tiles here, right? So this is a cross section of the paper insulation, and this is one of the technique that can make a sustainable construction. And quickly we'll look into just two concepts of techno, because I've given the topic as smart materials and techniques, right? So I would cover the recent techniques, very few techniques on the recent techniques. So I was continuously talking about precast. How am I going to bring the connection inside the site? So I'll be having an embedded structure like this where I can incorporate all the structure or make it behave as a monolithic structure here. So you can see the beam column joints here, and also you can see. So the main advantages of using this, actually due to time constraint I removed, we have made a cost analysis, obviously it is more, but the time frame of construction of this building. So when I'm going to use a smart frame structure, 220 days of construction can be reduced to 80 days of construction when these precast smart frames. So this was one of the details that we had come across, comparing an ordinary frame structure and a smart frame structure. You just need to precast it in a factory, bring it to the site, and you just need to connect everything using your appropriate connection and make it a structure, right? So this is totally different from a precast, and you have to add something called a smart frame. So not all precast will have a T frame like this. Okay, so smart frames alone will have, you have bolt holes here wherein you will be facilitating the connections to be joined. You see, you can see here. So from here on you can connect a beam, and here on you can connect a beam. So smart frame is totally different from an ordinary precast construction. So these are some. This is the image that was taken during it. So it's like just simply assembling the building as it was done in Chandigarh, where the building was constructed in 24 hours or so, right? So next one is tilt-up construction. Tilt-up construction generally we use for walls. So when we are doing a precast wall panel, we bring it to the site and we just lay it on the ground, and by using cranes, we just use it. So one main advantages of this tilt-up construction is you don't need a bulkier wall in terms of this, because when you make a wall more bulky, transportation and fixing of this construction will be a very tedious job. So you'll be having a very thin section, and one main thing is the walls can be used as a load-bearing walls in this tilt-up construction. Only thing is you need some cranes in order to transport it and in order to place it in position. So this is a tilt-up construction. I think you can see the cross-section of the wall here. The top wall is actually thin and it goes thicker as it comes down. So this is one way of customizing the material. So the entire building can be, so this was actually a godown where the entire walls were constructed using a tilt-up construction. It was fabricated in the site and it was constructed and completed within a week. So these are some of the major advantages of using. There are a lot more constructions. You know many constructions like slip form techniques and many more. I've just given a couple of techniques that can be used. So the major concentration of this particular lecture was in materials, I should say, right? So
thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful webinar. I could have seen 230 plus participants who attended this webinar.
Thank you. That should be due to the organizers' effort, I should say.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to at least get a feedback, if not the questions. Was it really useful? Did it add at least a small extra knowledge to them? A couple of feedbacks would be fine for me, please.
I hope that all these 230 participants have gained extra knowledge of this futuristic concrete. We would be happy that if you post your feedback in the chat box. There is definitely no doubt that it was an excellent webinar. It was very useful for the all mediums of all classes of participants.
I think I can see some questions.
Ma'am. There was a question like, does polystyrene can be added?
Polystyrene is actually a lightweight aggregate classification. It can be added in concrete. I could see a lot of thank you, Dr. Sendil Kumaran, and thank you, Mr. Praveen Kumar, who had given a good feedback here, and Yelil said it's a good presentation, right? Does polystyrene can it be added? Yeah, it can be added in concrete, but you cannot expect strength out of it. It can be used as a partition, or it can be used for a thermal comfort. So you cannot expect a lot of strength to be taken up by this particular type of concrete.
There is another questions like difference between high performance concrete and high strength concrete.
Yeah, good. I told you I will give you at the end of the. Okay, high strength concrete. Generally, we concentrate only on the strength aspects. We are not bothered about the durability of the concrete. We just do some preliminary durability and then leave it. So, for example, we just go into the sorptivity. We think that when we make a concrete high strength, obviously it becomes a high performance, but it is not like that. So, high performance concrete is one thing which will have a very long lasting life. So for example, I'm designing a structure for 50 years as a design period, then I'm supposed to look into the durability aspects in detail. For example, let me say a couple of durability testing that we usually do is, generally we do an RCPT test, we do a sorptivity test, that's it. Okay, so you're supposed to do a corrosion resistant test, you're supposed to do an accelerated acid resistant test, you're also supposed to do a carbonation test in order to confirm the concrete as a high performance concrete. So it should satisfy all your requirements in terms of workability, in terms of your strength, in terms of your performance in this way. I would say the performance index is the durability index. All possible durability tests should be conducted on this in order to make the concrete highly durable. Is it possible to use new concrete waste material like copper slag, GGBS and recyclate aggregate without admixtures? It is possible to use all these materials. Copper slag has already been used, GGBS and recycled aggregate can be used. Without admixture or with admixture depends upon your strength on your concrete. Depends upon what strength you actually need. If you're going to go for M20 or M25 grade of concrete, you don't need an admixture. But when you're going to use all this in a high strength concrete, definitely you need to look into a compatible admixture here, right? So this was a question by Mogana Priya. And Tejshri, any suggestion for bringing in a cooler environment of construction, say for a residence, madam? Cooler environment. I think I've shown you some aspects here. Paper insulation should be good, and generally, if you are able to customize an aerated concrete wall panel, it should be 100 times better for you to bring a thermal comfort in your building.
Thank you, Praveen sir, and thank you, Snega Kasturi.
Praveen sir has given a very good comment. Yeah, I have a very good comment here. Not even a single second was skipped. Thank you, Soumya, for this feedback. What is the maturity concrete? Am I right, or is it something else? Maturity concrete is the hardened concrete. We call it as a concrete that is matured. Is the spelling correct, or am I able to get the point correctly? Someone named UV has posted a question here. What is the maturity concrete? Is it right? Maturity concrete is nothing. The concrete that has attained its full strength. Maybe if it is a normal cured concrete, it is 28 days. And if it is a steam cured concrete or autoclaved concrete, then it should be after the curing period. It is called as the mid concrete. Yes, at rajalakshmi.edu.in. That is my mail ID.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. As all good things come to an end in life, so is the session. No duty is more urgent than of returning thanks. On behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, Rajalakshmi Engineering College, I take this immense opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to thank our keynote speaker, Dr. S. Geeta, Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, Rajalakshmi Engineering College. What you have shared in this session might give a clear idea about the futuristic concretes. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your valuable time and knowledge with us. And I extend my special thanks to my beloved colleagues and students and participants from various esteemed institutions for your active participation. With these warm words and a kind message, we move to the end of today's session. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I think some of you had asked the presentation. Maybe if required, I would like to share the presentation with the organizers, and anyone who are interested can get it from them.
I've shared the mail ID with you. You can have, if you have any queries, you can mail to that ID, and I also shared Geeta Ma'am's mail ID too.
Okay. Thank you, Hema. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you. Dear participants, feedback link is shared in the chat box.
ID, and I also shared Geeta Ma'am's mail ID too.
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Hema. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you. Dear participants, feedback link is shared in the chat box.
ID, and I
to get the
mail ID too.
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Hema. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.